When you learned to use the Animatable library earlier this week, you only learned how to create animations that occur when the component is first loaded or mounted by adding props to the component. In this exercise, we'll see a way to trigger an animatable animation with a pan responder. Specifically, we'll give visual feedback to the user when they make a gesture by responding with an animation to let the user know that we recognize that they've started a gesture. We will only need to update campsite info component.js. We'll update the render campsite component in that file. In order to programmatically trigger an animation on an animatable component, we'll first need to set up a reference to it. We will accomplish this by using a React ref. We used refs before in the React course. As we begin this exercise, it may be helpful to think of refs as similar to how, in web development, you might give an HTML element an ID attribute so that you can refer to it in your JavaScript code by using something like getElementById. That's very similar to what we'll be doing here, using a ref. The first thing we'll do is create a ref using the react.createRef method, and we'll store it in a variable named view, like this. Next, we'll point this ref to an animatable component. Go ahead and scroll down to the first animatable view component that's been returned from here, the one that contains the card with the campsite image and other information. Any React components that are defined as class components, which animatable view is, will allow us to set a ref prop on it. For the value of this ref prop, we'll use the view ref that we just created, like this. Now we can use this view ref to set up an animation using the pan responder. Here, where we create the pan responder, let's add another pan handler. We'll use onPanResponderGrant, which is a handler that is triggered when a gesture is first recognized. Don't forget to add a comma between this and the next panhandler. Inside this panhandler, we'll use that ref for the animatable view component by typing view. Then, in order to refer to the currently mounted instance of this component, we need to type .current. Then we'll call an animatable function as a method on this ref. All the animatable animations, such as bounce, fade in, fade out, zoom in, etc., are able to be used not only as props on an animatable component, but also as methods, like this. We'll call a rubber band animation here as a method and pass it the number 1000, which means it will have a duration of 1000 milliseconds. Now, every animatable method, such as rubber band, will return a promise object at the end of the duration that will contain the property of finished. This property finished will be true if the animation finished successfully and false if the animation was unable to finish for some reason. It's not necessary to do anything with this promise, but we'll just use that promise here to console log whether it finished or was cancelled. We do not have to do this. I'm just showing you how it's possible to add another action to the end of an animation this way. We're only logging a message to the console here, but there could be situations where you want to have more complex responses after the end of an animation. For example, maybe you want to start another animation, or dispatch a Redux action, or call another event handler. This gives you a place where you can do that. Let's go ahead and test this. Here we are at the campsite info component. And when I start to perform a gesture, you can see the rubber band animation working. So that provides visual feedback to the user that we recognize that the user is doing a gesture, And even if it's not the right to left gesture, even if the user is gesturing up or down, it at least gives a hint that this is a responsive item. We are at the end of this exercise, and if you're using Git, this would be a good time to make a commit.